Hi everyone, Rose here. As one of Jehovah's Witnesses, many of us lived through years and sometimes even decades of changes as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. The teachings have shifted, the emphasis has been moved, rules have been softened, reversed, or even quietly disappeared. What was once spoken with certainty was later reframed, adjusted, or explained away as misunderstanding. And we were taught to see these changes as refinement, as progress, as evidence that Jehovah was guiding the organization forward.
So just as daylight grows brighter and brighter gradually, a proper understanding of Bible truths comes gradually, as we need it and as we are able to absorb it and use it.
And we were taught something else just as clearly, that faithful people don't hesitate, they don't linger, they don't need time to process. So most of us learn to move on quickly, even when something inside us didn't. Often the first sign wasn't a thought, it was a feeling, a subtle unease, a tightening in the chest, a sense that something no longer fit, even though we couldn't yet say why. That's because questioning had always been framed as dangerous.
Well, how about us? How do we do? Do we think thoughts of men, or do we think God's thoughts?
Those reactions, they didn't feel like information. They felt like a problem, something to correct, something to pray away. So the question wasn't what changed, it was, why do I feel like this? As one of Jehovah's Witnesses, the indoctrination itself felt safe. There were clear answers, clear rules, clear expectations. We were taught what was right and wrong, what pleased God, and how to stay in good standing with Jehovah and with the people around us. And that certainty made life feel predictable, safe. Indoctrination, in simple terms, is the process of being taught how to think, how to evaluate yourself, and how to stay safe long before you ever question it. And it doesn't just teach beliefs, it teaches consequences. So when the indoctrination began to loosen, the sense of safety went with it. Not all at once, but quietly. We didn't suddenly think, something's wrong with the organization. What we felt instead was discomfort. And when that discomfort showed up, the reflex wasn't to look outward. The reflex was to look inward. Am I being humble enough? Am I thinking independently? Is something wrong with me? That reflex didn't come from weakness. It came from learning over time that trusting yourself could cost you approval, belonging, or even your peace. And the impact of that learning is self-doubt that can linger long after our belief itself begins to loosen. Eventually, no one has to watch us because we do it ourselves. The internalized control is what happens when external rules and correction become an internal voice. We learn which thoughts feel unsafe to finish, which questions shouldn't be spoken out loud, which emotions need to be softened or even hidden. And this shows up in everyday life. Replaying conversations long after they ended, changing how we phrase something mid-sentence, scanning faces for approval or concern, and feeling relief not because something went well, but because nothing went wrong. As one of Jehovah's Witnesses, this self-monitoring was encouraged. It was framed as spiritual maturity, and the human impact is exhaustion.
Want to be rebellious Instead, we want to follow the lead of the faithful slave, be content to do that.
Even neutral interactions can feel draining because the body never fully relaxes. It stays alert, careful, ready. Over time, many of us carried an internal strain that we didn't know how to name. Cognitive dissonance is the stress that comes from holding two things at once that don't fully match. On one hand, we were taught that the organization represented truth, love, and divine care. But on the other hand, we lived experiences that didn't align with that promise. And often these weren't dramatic moments, they were quiet ones. Doing everything expected and still feeling unsupported. Seeing deeply personal struggles handled judiciously rather than compassionately. Asking sincere questions and feeling the conversations shut down. Reaching out and receiving silence instead of care. At the time, we didn't call this harm. We turned it inward. I'm too sensitive. I need to do more. I must be missing something. And those moments don't disappear. They accumulate. And over time, that unresolved tension begins to show, emotionally and physically, even before the mind is ready to question anything. As one of Jehovah's Witnesses, we were taught that what we heard from the stage, the videos, and in the publications was described as loving guidance. But lived day to day, it functioned as behavioral control. Behavioral control means learning to adjust your behavior in anticipation of how it will be judged. And as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, this showed up everywhere. How we dressed, who we spent time with, which invitations we accepted or declined. Holidays were a clear example. While others relaxed, decorated, or gathered, we learned to stay separate, not just outwardly, but internally. We learned to brace for questions, to feel watched, to feel different, even when no one said anything. The same thing happened at work or at school. Casual conversations about birthdays, weekends, or plans could trigger discomfort, not because we wanted to judge others, but because we were trained to monitor ourselves. The impact is that life begins to feel like a performance, not because someone is always watching, but because we learned what happens when we're seen as out of step. Many people assume obedience is chosen, but inside high control systems, obedience is conditioned. Conditioning is what happens when certain thoughts or actions are repeatedly paired with consequences. As one of Jehovah's Witnesses, those consequences were often relational: correction, concern, distance, loss of trust. And over time, the body learns these associations automatically. So even considering a different perspective can cause a physical reaction, tightness, anxiety, even a sense of danger before the mind has time to reason. And that reaction isn't belief, it's learned response. The body remembers what disagreement once cost us. Many of us didn't become hypervigilant when we started questioning. We were already living that way. Hypervigilance is a medical term for a nervous system that stays on high alert, scanning for risk even when nothing is happening. And as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, this developed gradually through constant self-monitoring, through repeated correction, through knowing that small missteps could carry large consequences. And it shows up in real life in simple ways. Walking into a holiday setting and immediately scanning the room. Feeling tense when coworkers talk about celebrations or plans. Saying no to social invitations, then replaying the decision afterward, monitoring our tone, our posture, and our words, even with people that we trust. The human impact is fatigue. The body never gets the message that it's safe to stand down. What we relied on didn't just teach beliefs. It taught us how to decide, how to belong, how to stay in good standing. It told us what would happen if we complied and if we didn't. That framework helped us move through daily life without constantly feeling at risk. So when teachings that were once presented as certain are later changed or softened, something deeper is disrupted. The explanations may make sense on paper, but the body is still responding based on what those teachings once meant. That's why fear, guilt, or even confusion can appear even after belief has been shifted. See, what's being disrupted isn't just doctrine or what we were being taught. It's the system that once made everyday life feel manageable.
And also, the governing body is neither inspired nor infallible, and so it can err in doctrinal matters or in organizational direction.
As witnesses, we were expected to obey the governing body as if direction came directly from God. But when teachings changed, the cost of that obedience was rarely acknowledged. Authority stayed intact, but the impact of their decisions stayed with us.
Well, knowing this, then, we are not embarrassed about adjustments that are made, nor is an apology needed for not getting it exactly right previously. We understand this is how Jehovah operates.
It settles into the body as stress, grief, or even quiet anger, not because we did something wrong, but because the cost was never named. For many of us, the hardest part wasn't questioning. It was having no one to talk to while it was happening. As one of Jehovah's Witnesses, we learned early that certain thoughts shouldn't be spoken. Doubts were treated as dangerous. Struggle was spiritualized. Questions were redirected. So, silence became normal long before we ever started waking up. And when confusion set in, we didn't have the words yet. We felt anxious without even knowing why, guilty even when we hadn't done anything wrong. And easy after conversations meant to help us. And we didn't know who we could speak to without making things worse. When we eventually reached out, it wasn't to argue beliefs. It was to explain what we were living through. Often, we weren't listened to. We were corrected, redirected, spoken over. So we went quiet again. And the impact is isolation, not chosen, but learned. Many people expect relief once they step back. For some of us, symptoms intensify instead. This is delayed impact. Inside the system, as being one of Jehovah's Witnesses, we survived by staying tightly regulated, suppressing reactions, monitoring ourselves, absorbing contradictions. And when that structure loosens, the body finally responds. And this isn't collapse, it's exposure. The nervous system is finally showing what it has carried for us. Now, sometimes reactions show up long after our belief is gone. A holiday, a conversation, a harmless invitation. Suddenly there's tension, a jolt, a sense of unease that just doesn't match the moment. This doesn't mean belief has returned. It means the body remembers. As one of Jehovah's Witnesses, certain situations were tied to consequences for years. The mind may have moved on, but the body learned the pattern first. And these moments aren't failure. They're reminders of how deeply the indoctrination shaped a sense of our safety and how long it can take the body to catch up. This video wasn't meant about telling anyone what to believe. My hope is to give words and language to what many experience, what I experienced in my lifetime, especially when we didn't have words yet. And I hope to help those outside looking in understand the human impact and the human cost, not doctrine, not arguments, but what this kind of system does to a person over time. If you tried to speak out and felt shut down, that mattered. If you reached out and felt more alone afterward, that mattered too. You don't owe clarity. You don't owe healing on a timeline. You don't owe anyone proof. Being able to understand what happened and to recognize what it cost, well, that's enough for right now. I hope this video resonated with you somehow or helped give you language for what you're feeling or what you felt. Please make sure to like algorithms and all. It helps this video go out to a larger audience. And if you really enjoyed it and would like to learn more about the history, changing teachings, as well as lived experiences, please make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons. And if you're able to, please share to help others understand the internal teachings and life impact as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. As always, take care of yourself and continue to search for truth beyond the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, which is now known as the Watchtower Organization. Remember, truth doesn't mind being questioned, but a lie can't handle it. Thank you very much for being here.
We don't want to be rebellious. Instead, we want to follow the lead of the faithful slave, be content to do that.
The faithful slave provides spiritual food. Whereas in the first century, there was supernatural knowledge available for apostles and Bible writers, in the time of the end, Jehovah does not bestow this miraculous gift anymore.
And also, the governing body is neither inspired nor infallible, and so it can err in doctrinal matters or in organizational direction. Well, knowing this, then, we are not embarrassed about adjustments that are made, nor is an apology needed for not getting it exactly right previously.
Therefore, we remain obedient and responsive to the direction we receive. We never dismiss it, even if it doesn't appear practical from a human standpoint.